At 75, King Charles is facing a royal reckoning he never anticipated. In a moment that blindsided the monarchy, Prince Edward has shattered his decades-long silence about Princess Diana, and the fallout has been seismic. The revelation stirred buried emotions, brought long-suppressed secrets to light, and left Charles visibly rattled, haunted by guilt and the weight of the past. As long-buried truths begin to rise, the carefully curated royal narrative starts to fray. Why now? Why has Edward chosen this moment to speak? And what exactly did he reveal? For decades, Prince Edward was seen as the quietest of the royals, someone who stayed far from controversy, rarely attracted attention, and was always content to remain in the shadows. While his siblings made headlines through scandal or sharp public scrutiny, Edward maintained a low profile. There were no bombshell interviews, no dramatic gestures, no breaches of protocol. He was the picture of restraint and loyalty, a royal who followed the rules without question. To many, he seemed forgettable or even cold, especially in comparison to his more outspoken family members. But his silence hid something more complex. A man who had seen it all from behind palace walls but never once broke rank. Edward wasn't naive or unaware. He witnessed the royal family's private turmoil up close. He recognized the early signs of trouble in Charles and Diana's marriage before the tabloids even sensed a story. He observed the carefully orchestrated public appearances that masked private agony. He saw it all, yet said nothing. Through the scandals involving Prince Andrew, the public's harsh reaction to Camilla, and Diana's unraveling under pressure, Edward stayed quiet. And in time, his silence became a puzzle all its own. Why didn't he ever speak up? Was he protecting someone, or simply following the family's unspoken rules? Those who know him insist it wasn't fear, it was allegiance. Edward believed in duty above all. He thought preserving the family's image, no matter how flawed, was essential. While others wrote books, gave interviews, or aired grievances, Edward stayed silent, the quiet keeper of the monarchy's private truths. Watching, listening, never interfering. But at 61, when few expected him to ever break his silence, Edward finally spoke. And he didn't address politics or royal rivalries. Instead, he spoke about someone whose legacy had already been shaped and reshaped by the public. Princess Diana. His decision stunned many. After all, Diana's story has been told repeatedly over the years. But not by Edward. He had always refrained from adding his voice to the ongoing conversation about her. Until now. And when he did speak, it wasn't with nostalgia or vague sentiment. His words carried weight. They hinted at truths long buried, quiet empathy, and an emotional connection the world hadn't known existed. So why speak now? Was it a lingering grief, guilt, or the burden of holding back for too long? Whatever moved him, his words added a new dimension to Diana's legacy. A voice long absent had joined the chorus, one that raised fresh questions the monarchy had long hoped to silence. What emerged was a glimpse into a little-known relationship. Diana and Edward, an unexpected alliance that puzzled even insiders. Their bond wasn't shaped by romance, rivalry, or drama. It was something more subtle and harder to define. In a world where emotions were hidden behind formality, their connection was grounded in unspoken understanding. It was quiet, but significant, rooted in the shared recognition of pain others refused to see. Diana entered royal life young, expected to be graceful, serene, and compliant. But behind the pomp and glamour, she was profoundly lonely. Many in the royal circle dismissed her vulnerability as immaturity or weakness. Her emotional transparency unsettled them. She didn't play the part of the ideal princess. But Edward viewed her differently. He didn't label her as difficult or unstable. He saw someone trapped in a life that clashed with her nature. While others pulled away, he stepped closer. A simple, human question, "Are you okay?" cut through the icy detachment of palace life. In a household where feelings were often buried, that gesture spoke volumes. He saw what others ignored, The sadness in her eyes, the pressure behind her perfect posture, the cracks beneath the surface. When Diana entered a room, Edward would often be the one to quietly rise, not out of duty, but because he genuinely cared. Their friendship wasn't born from drama or political gain. It was built slowly, in quiet glances and shared empathy. In those still, unremarkable moments, something meaningful took root, an emotional refuge built on trust and mutual understanding. Their bond didn't need dramatic gestures or long conversations. It lived in quiet looks, soft words, and the comfort of silence. In a world obsessed with image, Diana and Edward found something genuine. Those close to them recall Diana once wrote that Edward understood her in a way Charles never tried to. That one line said everything. While her husband kept his distance, Edward stayed close, quietly witnessing her struggles and offering support, never seeking praise. But their connection wasn't one-sided. Diana's vulnerability left a lasting impact on Edward. Often seen as the most reserved of the Queen's children, he had always remained silent, until Diana changed something in him. Even years after her death, Edward carried the weight of what he saw and couldn't fix. Their friendship, born in the emotional shadows of royal life, remained private but deeply human. In a world where protocol often smothers compassion, Edward's care was a rare act of quiet grace. Their understanding proved that kindness can outlast tradition. Then came August 31, 1997, the day the world stood still. Diana had died in a car crash in Paris. Streets overflowed with flowers, notes, and tears. People grieved openly, but the palace remained silent. No public statement. No flag at half-mast. No emotion. That silence sparked outrage. Why hadn't the Queen or Charles said anything? Did they even care? While the monarchy was criticized for its coldness, something unexpected happened. Prince Edward quietly broke from protocol. Without fanfare, he flew to Paris. No cameras, no press, no announcement. Just a quiet decision from the heart. He walked the hospital where Diana's body lay. And in a deeply personal moment, he asked to see her, not out of duty, but to say goodbye. It was an act no one knew about for years. The palace never acknowledged it, and Edward never spoke of it. Only a few insiders knew the truth. But now, with time and new revelations, that moment matters more than ever. Edward's quiet journey to Paris showed who he really was, not just a royal, but a man who chose humanity over tradition when it mattered most. While the world mourned loudly, Edward's silent goodbye stood apart, a gesture of love and dignity that needed no spotlight. In August 1997, Diana was carving out a new life. At 36, newly divorced, she focused on raising her sons, William and Harry. "That's what I wanted," she said. "That's what I want." She was also exploring new love with Dodi Al-Fayed. Their summer in France was a break from the constant media pressure. But on the night of August 31st, that escape turned tragic. Chased by paparazzi, Diana, Dodi, their driver Henri Paul, and a bodyguard sped through Paris in a black Mercedes-Benz. At around 121 miles per hour, they entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. The car struck a pillar and flipped. A witness recalled, "There was this huge, violent, terrifying crash, followed by the lonely sound of a car horn." Dodi and Henri Paul died instantly. Diana, still alive but critically injured, was rushed to Piti-Salpêtrière Hospital. Doctors tried everything, CPR, electric shocks, but couldn't save her. Despite the medical team's efforts, Diana's internal injuries were too severe. After hours of trying, she was declared dead just before 5 a.m. The world was stunned. Diana wasn't just a royal. She was a global symbol of compassion. Her death sparked an outpouring of grief unlike anything seen before. Millions mourned. Vigils and tributes flooded in from every corner of the globe. Her final hours were later portrayed in The Crown Season 6, which focused on her last night at the Ritz and her tender phone call with her sons. Though the crash itself wasn't shown, the emotional weight of those moments resonated deeply. Her passing remains one of the most heartbreaking events in modern history. Yet, Diana's legacy lives on, through her sons and the humanitarian work she inspired. She's remembered not just as a princess, but as a woman who used her heart and voice to make a difference. Now, the silence surrounding her story has cracked again, this time by the most unlikely person, Prince Edward. Known for his discretion and loyalty, Edward had spent his life avoiding the spotlight. While his siblings often made headlines, he remained dutiful, disciplined, and quiet. Many assumed he would never speak out, but then he did. There was no royal script, just raw, honest emotion. She didn't deserve any of it. She was more royal than any of us, he said, his voice breaking. That simple sentence sent shockwaves through the public. He was speaking of Diana, the people's princess, who had endured deep suffering behind palace doors. Edward's words, spoken privately and now made public, broke a silence that had lasted more than 2 decades. Now people are asking, was this just Edward unburdening a long-held truth, or is it the start of something bigger, a crack in the wall of royal silence that could finally let the truth come through? 4 decades, the world has speculated about what really happened behind palace doors during Diana's time. Her pain was public. Her voice was often stifled, but never entirely gone. Through interviews, gestures, and glances, she kept telling the world she wasn't okay. Still, the royal institution remained mostly tight-lipped. There were no real answers, no apologies, only polite deflections and a firm grip on tradition. But with Edward's admission, that grip has loosened. He confirmed what many had long feared, that Diana wasn't just misunderstood. She was mistreated, ignored, and possibly even betrayed. And with those words, Edward's role changed forever. He's no longer just the quiet royal. He's become an unlikely truth-teller. Now, the question echoing everywhere is, why now? What prompted him to finally speak out? Was it the weight of grief? Years of bottled-up guilt? Or the realization that silence, after all this time, is no longer noble? Whatever the reason, it's clear this moment has shifted something. It may not be a revolution, but it feels like a reckoning. Edward's revelation isn't just a look into the past, it's a ripple that could reshape the future of the monarchy. And at the center of this earthquake is King Charles. He's no stranger to pressure. As king, he carries not just the expectations of a nation but also the emotional baggage of his past. His complicated and painful relationship with Princess Diana continues to haunt the monarchy's public image. Edward's words, gentle but devastating, have cracked open old wounds Charles tried for years to bury. After decades of trying to rebuild his reputation and move forward, he now finds the past surging back, uninvited and unavoidable. For Charles, this isn't just political. It's personal. The memories stirred by Edward's comments are not easy ones. They're filled with conflict, guilt, and unfinished grief. And then there's Prince William, torn between 2 legacies. As heir to the throne, he has a duty to preserve the image and stability of the monarchy. But as Diana's son, he carries the emotional weight of her story and the responsibility to ensure she's remembered truthfully and with compassion. Edward's decision to speak up has forced William into a difficult position. Does he stay silent and protect the crown's future? Or does he take a stand, honoring his mother's pain by confronting the past? Whichever path he chooses could shape not only his legacy, but the very future of the institution he's set to lead. Prince Harry, meanwhile, may feel more vindicated than ever. He's been the most vocal critic of the royal institution, especially in how it treated his mother. 4 years, he's carried the pain of watching Diana suffer, and it's shaped his decision to step away from royal life. Now, to hear Edward, someone inside the royal circle, validate the things Harry has been saying all along must feel like long-awaited acknowledgement. It wasn't a journalist or a friend this time. It was family. It was royal. Edward's bold admission has sparked something deeper. Uncertainty about who else might come forward. If someone as reserved and loyal as Edward can speak out, then who might be next? Could we see a wave of revelations from others within the palace walls? The monarchy was built on secrecy, tradition, and carefully managed public perception. But times have changed. Today the public demands honesty. They crave transparency. They want to see the humanity behind the hierarchy. And now, for the first time in a long time, that curtain is being pulled back. As more royal secrets emerge, the conversation isn't just about history. It's about the monarchy's ability to adapt and endure. In a world where silence no longer shields but exposes, the crown stands at a crossroads. King Charles now faces not only the shadows of his own past but a pivotal moment for the monarchy itself. Centuries of restraint are colliding with a modern age that demands openness. Can the royal institution survive this new wave of truth? Let's take a closer look at how the monarchy might navigate these stormy revelations. Princess Diana's legacy has been stirred once more. Prince Edward's gentle disclosure did more than revisit old memories. It reopened a wound the royals never fully addressed. His quiet words transported the public back to a deeply emotional moment, a chapter that many tried to leave behind, but which still lingers in the collective heart. By speaking up about Diana, Edward did something profound. He reignited a global dialogue that simply refuses to fade. For decades, the royal family has hidden behind a carefully crafted image, shielded by tradition and silence. Their guiding mantra, never complain, never explain, kept them distanced from emotional upheaval and public scrutiny. But times have changed. Today's audience wants more than pomp and ceremony. They seek vulnerability, honesty, and the human stories behind the crowns and titles. Now, a new question echoes louder than ever. Can the monarchy survive in an era that demands transparency? Or will its silence finally collapse beneath the weight of long-buried truths? What made Prince Edward's admission resonate so deeply was its tone. It wasn't fueled by resentment or scandal. It came from contemplation, from emotion, and perhaps, quiet remorse. These were not the words of a man chasing headlines, but of someone who had witnessed it all and stayed quiet, until now. His simple truth shattered the illusion of flawless royalty. And once that illusion cracked, there was no reversing the damage. Edward's account wasn't just about Diana's pain, it revealed a system that failed her. He reminded the world that Diana did more than bend royal protocol. She defied expectations and uncovered the emotional void hidden behind regal smiles. Her voice, once silenced and managed, is now being heard with renewed intensity, lifted by admirers and truth-tellers who are no longer afraid to speak up. And perhaps, her story was never truly finished. Maybe it's only now being told in its rawest, most powerful form. Her legacy, long painted in fairy tale hues, is being redefined, layered with sorrow, strength, and fierce honesty. People no longer see her as just a tragic royal or heartbroken figure. They see her as a catalyst, a brave force for change within one of the world's most rigid institutions. This is more than a reflection on the past. It's a turning point. Will others in the royal fold find their voice? Will the palace finally face the questions it's been dodging for decades? Or will it cling to tradition as public trust begins to slip? What's undeniable is this. The silence surrounding Diana is cracking wide open. Her story isn't fading into history. It's rising with fresh energy, powered by memory, by truth, and by a brother-in-law who chose, at last, to speak. The world is paying attention again. And this time, they won't settle for half the story. So, what are your thoughts on Prince Edward's revelation about Diana at 75? We want to hear from you. Share your views in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.